Shannon, where are you guys at with this project right now? Like in the last couple of weeks, what have you guys been working on?
We're closing out. We're trying to polish and fix all the bugs and make it a really fun experience. Cory's spending a lot of time with playtest feedback and rolling the knobs a little bit here and there for the balance and tuning. And
it is bug fixing, polish, cleanup, tuning and balancing. So it's all the things. There's a lot of them. Yeah, and it is definitely a lot of square footage of stuff that we need to.
The exploration piece has exponentially, required a lot of the team because it's a new piece of the game that we've never really done before. So we're really discovering now what it takes to close out those larger areas.
We are very much like that Westwood College commercial. We're just tightening up the graphics on level 3. You know what's funny is that we almost could recreate that commercial. You'd come in and tell me that we have another game to design, and I'll be like, I'm tightening up the graphics on level 3.
2 weeks left, and he's not willing to close it out.
And I have a graduate degree from Westwood College in game design, so it all works out perfectly.
You really have a degree somewhere?
No. It's an honorary degree from the Mickey Mouse University.
What has the studio learned after tackling a project this huge?
It's a really great question. I think there's a lot of takeaway, and that's part of the process. We'll get everyone together after we give our time out of the studio for a little bit for a refresh and really start to understand where they thought things worked and where we need to double down on maybe a process change or a pipeline change. I don't know. I mean, I think we're all very happy with where we are right now. We're not in playtest figuring out that, Atreus just doesn't work. We are very confident in the story, character development, combat. There's, I think, a really great belief in where we are right now. I think people are very tired. There's still a lot of work left to do, but we'll be pulling from everyone in sort of a post-mortem fashion to understand what their perspective is and where they feel like we really need to look at different opportunities. We'll also look at doubling down with the leads, some of the guys that are deep into the trench with the way that we are building this game, with the way we're building exploration, and really make sure that they're, that we're all giving the right pipeline support and tools and design expertise that we need to streamline things as much as possible to make sure.
You said that really pointedly when you looked at me.
Yeah, because it seems like it goes like this a lot. Just like a lot of windy.
Right.
Yeah.
Circuitous is how I say it, which makes it sound super smart.
Yes.
Can you compare how challenging this game has been to develop to any other game the studio has made throughout its history? Is it just leaps and bounds beyond anything, or does it feel like God of War 1 again?
It doesn't feel like God of War 1. We were so young back then, and we didn't really know what we were getting ourselves into, whereas I think on this one we knew, I would suspect 60% of what we were getting ourselves into.
We know just enough to get ourselves into trouble. Perhaps.
Right, that 40% was complete trouble.
Yes.
And, but it's also polishing up into a really phenomenal 40%. So it's worth it. I think we are probably a bit more, maybe a little reserved in the way that we go about decision making. We have a little more caution, I think we're seeing within the team, not necessarily with leadership, but with the team. They're asking more questions versus, sounds awesome, let's get moving. They want more direction, more guidance.
Just because there's more money on the line? Is that
more
the basic
money,
thing?
and I think, there's a large game here. So the more we sign up for, the more we commit to. I mean, we've changed a lot of things. Weapon alone is a big shift for us. And it takes not just a couple of weeks. You're talking about months on end, really.
3 years.
Yeah, honing it, making sure that that's the direction we want to go. The camera, I mean, there were a lot of issues with that decision that Cory was steadfast on and believing in to help define where we're going with the new Norse God of War. On top of exploration, right? There's just layer upon layer. So I think we're a little wiser to signing up for too much. And it doesn't mean we didn't do it this time around. It seems like we did.
We did.
But we needed to. We really needed to show our fans and ourselves that this franchise can be pivoted and do it in a really bold way versus, we think we might change the weapon up a little bit.
We had something to prove, I think, on the early games. And we have something to prove now, but it's different things each time, right? I think before it was nobody knew who we were or what we were capable of, and we had something to prove.
Look at us. Look at who we are.
Look at us.
Look at what we can
do.
And then also the statement where no American developer can create.
Yeah, that was the DMC guy saying no Western developer will create a great action adventure game. That's just purely a sort of a Japanese developer's sensibility. And we were like, look, we love those action adventure games, so we're gonna do it.
It was a huge challenge.
We're gonna prove them wrong. And I think in this one, it's more proving we still got it, right? We can still do this.
The surprising aspect is interesting. I mean, even at PSX, you're talking about, yeah, it turns out this game's 25 to 35 hours. As a fan, it's like, how did you not realize that? Or what's just that process like of discovering, like, oh, this is the game?
Kicking and screaming to not cut anything.
Yeah. You never really want to like admit to yourself or anyone else how long it is, because you know that throughout the game you're going to just have to keep scoping things out. It's just that I think I've gotten really good at circumventing that process throughout development and figuring out how to just like dodge away from having to get rid of certain things.
You cut stuff though. You ended up.
No. We cut a lot of stuff. Like that's the surprising thing. But I think it's interesting. Every game has that same problem where you always think it's too short, and then when you finally playtest it, you're like, oh wow, it's way longer than I expected.
It's a tough way. It's very difficult to judge it. Yeah. Everything's in pieces, everything's coming in, and on this one at the same time. That was another thing that traditionally our, process would be to land a third of the game in this, around alpha, so we knew sort of what that playtime could look like, and then you multiply it. This iteration for, I guess, reasons of sort of having 100 people available all at once, we had to get the entire production going all at once. And I don't think we really put two and two together at that time to recognize that means the entire game was going to land all at once at that alpha and beta and final state, which makes for a really very challenging balancing act where you're putting your focus. The fact that you don't have necessarily a 1/3 test bed where you're really looking at the way the game is shaping up. He's got to watch all that all at once with the way that this particular production came together. So it's been a shift in that way for the studio as well, which I think if going back to your question of what have we learned, we don't want to do that again, right?
I think also it's that we didn't have the engine finished. We didn't have any of our tools ready for any of this stuff. Like, it's that point in which they say, we're going to go to the moon, but you don't have any tools to do that, and you got to figure it all out at the same time. So even though it seems really big, I can make people think that it's not that big by saying, well, but we got to do all this other stuff too, so it seems big, but don't worry, we'll get through it. I think if everything was ready, then they just focus on the fact that, yes, everything you just pitched me is really big. Maybe we should scale it down. I could say, well, let's focus on this other thing over here. Misdirection and salesmanship, that's this job right now.
So zooming out then, I know you're so close, but playing it, you're surprised, like, oh, it's bigger than I thought. Did you have any other reactions when you play this game from end to end that kind of surprised you?
I was surprised at how so many different moments emotionally took me off guard, because they're from my own life, but seeing them, hearing the characters say certain things that I know are just steeped in a lot of meaning for me, a lot of whether they exist as the insecurities or bad parts of my life. And I'm just like, wow, man.
And it's not even, for me, it wasn't even necessarily, it had to be in game. There were motion capture clips that, people were showing me, and I'm around, someone's desk with a couple other people, and I'm literally getting choked up and trying not to show that. And you walk away going, God, what the hell just happened?
Where the hell did that come from?
And then you end up seeing it in game, and it still has the same impact, as you've got that music, and you're in the world, you're really infused into that moment. It's pretty surprising how much, I agree, the emotional on this has really taken me in a place that I wasn't prepared to go.
Overall, how are you guys feeling about the game at this point?
Excited.
I'm not that excited. I don't think it's very good. I'm thinking another 2 to 3 years, and it'll really get there. No, I'm feeling great, man. I see the finish line. And I see, when I play it, we got a lot of tightening up to do, a lot of polishing of the silver, But I also see the elements or the parts of the game that are to that point that I could see, okay, the rest of this gets to this point. We are good to go. Now it's just that complete and total uncertainty of how are people going to react. You know, the playtest may be good, but we just never know, man. You never know. It is absolutely the mystery box.